Yeah, old prof here, and this isn't going to be the topic of the video just yet, but I should have been recording already. Doing some various videos. I got some Prime Day, or a Prime Day item over there, and I'm getting some backlighting on these displays now that we've got my setup of 32-inch 4K OLED LG Dual Up and Portrait 150%. That's what I use for browsing the web. Reading PDF documents, Word, that sort of stuff. Then we have an LG Dual Up in landscape / horizontal. And that I have at 100% and split it up 4 ways. And I have 4 nice, your Teams, Notepad++, your OneNote, email, Outlook, Discord, whatever you want to do there. Mint setup. However, none of these have ambient backlighting. So that's what that. I found 3. I had 3 kits from the place I like that no longer sells it. Before I was going to do that, I was going to break out my new Club 3D DisplayPort cable. Otherwise, I noticed that is not the normal connector on a Club 3D cable. And that is some chintzy strain relief. Normally they do better than that. If you remember on a previous video, I opened it up and I'm like, huh, that is weird. That's like a copy paper printed insert that was on top of this. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. And with the bags too, I'm trying to remember if they're a thing. I feel like normally these are just chucked in the box, because why would you have a bag in the box? But maybe I'm like overthinking there. Also with the box, this may not cover in the camera, but there's like a sheen over it, and I don't know, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I feel like they're normally more normal cardboard like that with just like printing on top of it. But you can even see based on the picture on the box that is not the right cable, right? It's also much thinner. Here is one that I purchased this year, but a couple months ago. Much beefier. I think that's like 50% more beef. So much thinner. And that is the correct connector. And you're like, how did you notice right away? Well, I've probably bought more than 100 of these. These are DisplayPort 1.4 because they're basically one of the only places that is VESA certified. Here's another one that I use in my main setup that I just unplugged from this LG Dual Up here that I had converted to a stand temporarily till I get back in the office. And yep, look at that, another one. It's like I use these on all mine. Yeah, so that sucks because I bought it on Amazon, shipped and sold by Amazon, with the seller being Club 3D. So you would think you wouldn't get fake ones, but Wendell over at Level 1 Techs has said he has had that happen before. Now, like I said, I bought like 100 of these probably over the years and never have had an issue. But I did this time. So, should have been recording this video already. We're going to look at what I picked up at Harbor Freight. Or Harbor Fart, or whatever you want to call it. Because these are finally in stock, not at what I would consider my local Harbor Freight, or even the one that's near work. I had to go a little bit more out of the way, but there happened to be enough time on Saturday here that I could go pick them up. Before we do those, though, I need to free up some space, and we need to get some comparisons. Oh, yeah, I got new Grave of the Fireflies. For those wondering what the heck I was talking about in, like, I got the re-release steelbook, is because right there, but if you, all these are G-Kids, this is Sentai. However, they did actually spend time to make sure you're like, oh, that didn't look much different. Yeah, because Sentai actually made it, even though they only got that movie, I think maybe one other, they made it fit in with all the other steelbooks from G-Kids. Now that Crunchyroll, Sony bought Crunchyroll, and then they bought Funimation and smashed them together into like mega Crunchyroll, Sentai's been losing out on some licenses and stuff. And G-Kids makes more sense to get that from. But, so I picked up the new one. Don't know if it's actually any different. Would think so, because of, you know, different publisher. Yeah, I like this little DeWalt torpedo or bolt level. I got that. I don't know which one this is down here. I like this one though. Klein Tools, yeah, that makes sense. Those got some really nice levels in it, like really visible. And that one's got some just major, that's why it's hanging my mask. Got some major magnets. And you're like, okay, so why are we in here? I always clip my, we got Imperial or Standard and Metrique. We got the old hammer there. What we need is pliers. We're gonna grab some examples of some strippers to compare. And then over here, I think I have, this is my office / home bag, and I have electrician scissors. So we can talk a little bit about what we got here. I gotta rip this bad boy. I gotta update the software too in order to do it. Oh, okay. Thought so. So we've got some options for. Oh, I mean, we got some other ones too. Just end up getting some more out. And let's crack these open first, and we can talk with them as I go. You're like, why'd you pick those up if you got this whole other stack of these? Exactly what this video is going to be about. Still got a GPU to open. That there is a graphics card. I should probably open it up and make sure it's actually in there, because I can't put it in the system for a little bit here. But with the short return window that Newegg provides now, should probably get it in there sooner, or at least in a system sooner rather than later. So let's get these all off to the side here. All right, so what did we pick up? Oh, I've been trying to snag these icons for a while. They are based on a snap-on stripper. And I think I saw both of these I saw on Last Best Tool. He had them somehow well before they were readily available. This was so within what I would say like 4 or 5 hours of driving just this weekend since these launched, or since they were made first available. I don't know if they were like because they're kind of soft launched. This weekend was the first time I saw these available anywhere. And they're a wire stripper, cutter, crimper. Cutter, I don't know about that. Sorry guys, having a bit of reflux today. It's like I work all week, you know, push, and then weekend comes in, my body goes, oh, finally, sigh. Blah. You know, diarrhea, reflux, all that fun shit. Huge swings in temperature lately too. But I thought these were super interesting because they have the crimper out front and they have the stripper in the middle. To me, this makes more sense because you want and or need the leverage for the crimper and you don't really for the stripper. The only downside I really see with this is that it's going to be tough to strip stuff that is like buried inside of something, right? But for any other stuff, I think this will work better. Once I got it in hand, though, it does seem smaller than expected. Now, I think in one of the videos or comments or something I saw, Snap-on does make a bigger variant because this is a 14 to 24, which I believe is similar to one of the Snap-on variants. But then there's one that goes like, because realistically, if you're doing house-based stuff, you'd probably want up to at least 10 gauge, I would say, which would mean there'd be less options here. But also, if you're going up to 10 gauge on the stripper, you'd have to make the crimper bigger as well. And if you're making the crimper bigger, you're going to need a bigger tool. I don't know if it's actually bigger. Somebody did comment, though, that Snap-on does have one that goes up to bigger sizes. Okay, like bigger, smaller number gauges. Smaller number gauge means thicker wire, right? But I did, because I thought this was really interesting, and the fact that Icon can, I don't know if I should say can or has been knocking off the Snap-on tool so closely is kind of interesting. Now, for the Snap-on one, there are some other brands out there that make awfully similar. They're like acorn-headed strippers with the stripper in like on this side of the pivot. There are some other brands out there that have that. I don't know if that's the same OEM as Snap-on or if that's just a similar design. But this one, Nyon clones the Snap-on. I believe you actually get one more step of stripping, though. Whereas, like, some of the stuff that Icon is knocked off of Knipex, or Knipex, unlike this, which you'll see, like, they have a twin grips, or twin grip knockoff. It has a giant button on it. It looks clumsy as. Same thing with their Cobra variant. Like, but it seems like the Snap-on stuff, I mean, maybe because they're getting more brazen now. And because I wasn't a big Snap-on hand tool user, mostly aimed at like the 14.4 power tools, I didn't really notice that a lot of their current, like I knew the handles were Snap-on inspired. I didn't realize like a lot of their designs of their needle nose or long nose pliers and their cutters, like I knew their flush cutter was a knockoff of Snap-ons. I've used mine some. I plan on using it to flush cut Ethernet cable, you know, like your Cat 6, Cat 5, Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a, etc. When you make cables. Haven't had to do any since getting it, really. I have tried it on a few things. Some people have complained that it does dull very quickly. which would be annoying. But it is hard to find like a full-size wire cutter. Like you can find the micro ones, right? But when you're doing Ethernet, you want to be able to cut all the pairs at once, like all 8 wires, just chunk, and get a nice flush. Or either if you're the type of person that does the straight cut, right? Which if you have flush mount connectors, you have to do. Or if you're doing pass through, and I haven't tried this yet because I always learned the flush cut, but I use pass through connectors now. People have been saying that if you angle it a little bit, it actually makes it easier to feed because you're only feeding 1 wire at a time. So I might try that, but still, you need that front very, very flush. Otherwise, you run into all sorts of, I shouldn't say all sorts of issues. You get a worse connection, right? So I picked that up. I didn't realize that basically, no, I shouldn't say basically all, but a lot of their pliers are direct knockoffs of Snap-on. I've been keeping a bit more of an eye on it ever since the what is it, that adjustable needle nose came out. And I always knew that Icon had the triple spot, like the 3-spot slip joint pliers, right? I was like, oh, I'll pick up one of those. I mean, I knew Snap-on always had those, and I'm like, for those that want a traditional slip joint, that would be much preferable to have another step. But Snap-on, or Icon made a version of that. It was a Talon grip, which is a slip joint needle nose pliers. That is truly unique, as far as I'm aware, to Snap-on, and that's what really caught my eye on the Icon knockoffs of the Snap-on stuff. Now, in some cases, I think for the Talon grip, they went with the biggest size first because that would line up with all their other tools. I probably actually want the medium. Now with this one, and I don't know if the bigger gauges are bigger tool, but I kind of want the bigger tool. If there is a bigger tool, if there's such thing, or at least something that does bigger gauges. I can't imagine it does bigger crimps then though, so the tool would have to be bigger. This is much more for, they said it's aimed at automotive. This would be more for like in-car automotive, like under dash automotive, I would say. And not like external, like battery cables. Maybe some connecting trailer stuff, but those can be pretty hefty compared to what this can do. Like 14, that's on the low end of house stuff, and that's soft wire, soft stranded on here. That would be okay, so it goes 1 more for solid, according to this, the one you'll see shortly that I normally use. So that would be like a 12 gauge on the big side, and even on the crimper it goes 14, which makes sense. You would want it to crimp what you can strip. So on this, it shouldn't be that hard to open up because there's just this guy that's in the way here. I know I did a lot of talking without showing. Bad. We're getting a little tired. But I wanted to get you guys a video. Yeah, so don't steal stuff. But realistically, the only thing keeping us in this package is that plastic was adhered to that cardboard. I could have probably done it even without ripping it. You just got to lift this guy up. And actually, you might not even have to lift it up if you just slit it. I think I've showed in the past, like I'm taking SSDs, imagine if it was still there. Because you just needed to go past it. You could just, and it would pull right out. I just did it. Downside of a Palmer, when you first push it, it wants to go in that first notch. That's when the blade comes out. You got to make sure when you use this and it's off that you all the way forward. Not that you just flick it forward, because if you do that, the blade will come out and you'll go to slice and the blade comes out of the tool. Does look pretty though, doesn't it? I'm gonna drop it on the floor. Pretty just like this guy. LTT transparent screwdriver. So nice and small and handy. Got to work in the hinge a little bit. It does look like they... So I was kind of making a point earlier about, I don't know how much I'd use that for cutting. To be truthful, for the gauge wire, this thing's dripping in oil and grease. Really does look to be intended for stranded wire because it says stranded right there, and all the sizes they give are in stranded wire. I'm sure you could use it with solid core. At least according to my other strippers. What is it? It's -2. Yeah, so 22 would be solid, would be 20, 24, etc. Both the Klein and the Gardner Bender are like that. But the seams that, like, I would consider this, and I know like some people were confused when it came out because, you know, they didn't see the snap one before. I didn't, you know. But this, at least the version that Icon has knocked off from Snap, this thing is beef. It is beefy. It seems to be more for, like I said, inside car, like under dash electronics, and or like I'm going to use it for electronics repair, you know, like small electronics repair. 14 to 24 there, that's a pretty good range. You might be hitting some 26 maybe, but for the most part, and the crimper is 14 to 22. So I'm guessing the one that Icon might have added is the 24 there for the stripper. And originally when I was looking at this, I was gonna say that I wouldn't use it for cutting, but it does look like they have properly ground. The cutter is right at the base of the crimp. So you see right there, and oftentimes some tools will just use like a pinch cut, and it's pretty shit. You know, whereas this, they've actually, you can see that they've actually ground off that surface on this side to actually sharpen it. Now, I don't have any wire that I can sacrifice at the moment to see, but that seems to be a much more competent cutter than I was about to give it credit for. Yeah, because on a lot of these, it's just like they just have two surfaces that come together that just chunk it off, rather than like a proper cutter, if that makes sense. So, like I said, this is on the smaller side. I would compare it to something like this Klein Tools, and we can get into this a little bit more later. This is a 16 to 26 stranded. And some people would try and cut. I've seen on YouTube people try and cut solid core with this. I wouldn't. Any of the shears, and this one doesn't even have much shearing action, that this is kind of closer to that, like, oh, they just have two flat things coming together. Now it is sharpened a little bit. You know, but and it doesn't really have much of a pliers on the front. The two tips are kind of just bent to come together there. All right, let's see if I can get some more light here. Of course. All right. You see the dust in the air. It's 2 exit. Bam. So we got a little bit of a pliers up here. It doesn't close all the way. Usually with things that cut, like if you look at a combination plier, it also on the plier portion does not close 100% because it has a cutter on it, because the cutter needs to close 100%. Yeah, and I would still... Yeah, they still do pass over each other, so it's definitely a shear and not a shearing action, and not a like chopping, cutting action. For the small stuff that this has, if you don't need a super clean cut, I bet you that's going to be enough, and it's going to be better than a lot of the ones you're about to see. And this is the what is it? Icon PWCC-7. Apparently that's not the number you guys want. The number you guys want to actually find it on the website is the 7592. Even something like this thin cardboard, I don't know if you saw it there, but this thing grips up real good. So that's not really too much of a concern. Let's back ourselves out of here. I got a kitten in the lap. That's who I was dealing with. She was going to do things that she wasn't supposed to do. Yeah. Yes, you were. Let's get this electrician shears open. I get the old Tuck XL out. Oh, and so like this, to my knowledge, doesn't have any sort of safety thing in it, right? But this guy has a, let's say on the back here, alarm theft protection device in there. It's just that metal tab that you can disable with a strong enough electro. Well, probably normal magnitude, but usually it... Holy shit! I just flipped the blade on this. This is... We might use electrician shears. Oh, the kitten knocked over my pens, and they almost fell in. This plastic on here, I know of like containers that you'd put like stuff in. Oh, that are thinner plastic than what they used for this package. Holy shit. Like, that is like... Normally, I would just take a sharp blade and you just jab it in the side here and run it along. Not with this. Made in Taiwan. These guys are made in Taiwan as well. And you're like, why do you need electrician shears? You have electrician shears. Yep. Well, these also mentioned by Last Best Tool. Are... Oh, Jesus. Are actually the exact same as the Knipex ones. Now, Knipex doesn't make these because they don't make their own shears. But they're generally considered to be a very good shear. Holy shit. Look how thick that is. They are not wanting people to steal these. They're like 17 bucks. Not the most expensive thing, but for a pair of scissors at Harbor Freight, I guess they're on the more expensive side. They're in the electrical area, where like you'd buy wire and stuff like that. Should have gotten bigger shears. Didn't realize I get defeated by... it's leaving. Okay, so if you guys have ever seen the jokes about like how hard it is to get like stuff out of this clamshell packaging, I normally have zero issues with it because a nice sharp knife right along the seam is enough to defeat it. That though, I've had like reusable food containers with less plastic than they've used in this. Holy shit. Oh, and you can see they have done exactly what I did, which they didn't do on here, which is to get more leverage, you put your hand over here and you go snip. That is exactly why that is there. That's exactly why they put these extra bumps right there on top, because if you're that's a very nitpicky thing to do. The leading edges, so that they combine smoothly, are just beveled ever so slightly back. That is a very nitpicky thing to do. And apparently, because in the last best tool, he showed off having I think this is fingy here, 2 fingies here, and then that fingy there. This is the second bump that I'm not, like, either it's for taking your thumb to lift that up so you can do this so you don't have to put your finger back in. And this is all beveled, and like this is very ergonomic. And they've got the little stop so that you don't over travel. Like here they have to the ends of the handles hit, so it's like beveled in. That's so you don't overshoot. Let's get the little, yeah, this is restrained just as much as the other one is. Like normally I just tear this too. Once you get it started, you can just, but this plastic that they have put, normally Harbor Freight would, well, you saw how this is, right? That's only that thick. For example, look at that. It's much softer too. That's how easily that cut. This, I am fighting for dear life. Paisley, hey, it's not yours. She just stole the whole knife. She got it by its tail. Oh my gosh. Okay, Harbor Freight. I got one for you. How you can save about $10 on this product. Package it worse. Why are you taking my... She took this one out. She doesn't even have a tail. Paisley. Because I'm not giving you attention, right? Oh my god, I've never had to shred. Normally I'm very clean on this. Now I've got a whole pile of like... This can't be worth this much effort. There's little shredding schnibbles everywhere. That's a scissors. You can't, Paisley. You can't paw at a scissors. You'll hurt your paw. Okay, I gotta move you. Yeah, I gotta move you. I'm sorry. There's all little plastic in here from cutting this off too. That came off as I was... My god. Like I said, they want to save like $10 on that thing. package it cheaper. Now this was probably not the best tool to open it, but and you could probably done a better job with a bigger box cutter. I have my little ones because it's normally, I mean, I've taken down 2-ply cord, 2-ply corrugate, as they would say. Just wanted to clean that up right away. So here is Electricians Shears. Here's a little holder. Inside of here is a little clip. This clip snaps down like that, goes in your belt. I have heard people that are a little bit concerned when they, like imagine this is clipped on your belt and you put this in there. It's a shit fit. Like it's a really shitty fit. To me, it looked like the Knipex fit better. If you really force her in there, it does seat. What a lot of people had said though is they're worried about once it's in there tight like that. Yes, and that is exactly what happens. Is because of the poor design of this, it will unhook. Or if you go the other way and you put it this way and you want to hang it from your belt, right? Like so it's upside down, like so you're hooking it up like this. Yeah, it works with pulling it out. But as soon as you put it in, it's going to unhook. So do it, and here, let's see, it doesn't. This whole mechanism, like having this pivot and how it's basically like an eyelet, like it's like hanging a power strip. It's fine for something that is vertically hanging, like if you have it this way, right, and it hangs down like this, and the only forces that ever act upon it is pushing down. However, you're literally pulling it up to take it out. And then what happens? This comes out. So let's imagine here for a second, right there on my belt. Oh. So probably like every other, of course it goes all the way the fuck under. So like every other one, this one came with a sleeve. I don't think this did, it's too cheap. I will probably not be using this. Or if I do, I will modify this thing and attach it to something more sturdily. Because realistically you would want it hanging down like that if you had it as well. But in this direction, hanging down, right, anytime you put it away, which does take considerable force, it's going to come off. Or if you have it this way, let's just imagine now that you have it this way, which is how gravity would work, right? And then you pick it up to take it out, and just say you pull out when you do. You knock your camera over. Any amount of up makes it fall off. So you're actually probably more likely, because it takes so much force to pull this out and so little force to pull this out, you're actually probably more likely, to unhook the sheath than you are getting the actual shears, scissors out. Here, for like normal plastic packaging, that cuts it like butter. This little bit of ergonomics on there is greatly appreciated. I've got a couple offerings. Like I said, I'd probably keep this. This part of it though is useless. So if you find this and you find a way to like latch onto this, or what you would do is just drill some holes in here, put some rivets through, and rivet it to the side of whatever you want this on. This part, apparently this part of the sheath is the same on the Nipex, right? The click-in mechanism. It's this whole mess here and this that are different. So that would be another option potentially, is because this is, as far as you could tell on Last Best Tools video and his impressions of it is literally the exact same mold and everything. It's changed colors. Maybe finish in some ways a little bit worse. He didn't see that on his though. It's under DOYLE, which is surprising, like that they would put a $17 premium Shears. Like, here, this is nicer than either this commercial electric garbage. I think commercial electric might be, is that Walmart maybe? Either way, I was interested because it had, they did also grind off that corner. Like, it's actually not that bad, but it is kind of stiff, right? It does, however, have reamer on the outside. Now, whether or not the steel used in this is hard enough to like properly be able to use that as a reamer is a great question. What I kind of nabbed it for is because it had the extended area here. You know, you went, a lot of electrician shears you'll see will have like one small loop here and like a 2 or a 3 finger here with like a doodle. You know, it's either gonna be a 2 finger with a doodle, like on this guy, to do this, you know, or it'll be a 3 finger. I thought it was interesting that this one was a 3 finger. The other thing is that at least around the house, because remember how we just talked about our new stripper really being for small electronics, or if we're doing automotive wiring, we're talking like in the cabin or ECU related, you know, like the small, thin stuff, not the power, but the control stuff. This is actually very useful, and I would almost recommend this for around the house because it's 10 through 18. If you're doing house stuff, and no, I don't know if that is stranded or solid. Being that this is a Shears, I'm going to say stranded. Now, by how small that is, you can tell they don't expect you to cut very thick wire with this, right? And you can see some nicks in the blade. This is unlike the Harbor Freight DOYLE or the Nipex version that it seems to be based on. I don't know if I caught those, but you can see a nick right there, and that lines right up with that, right? You know, like this half circle here. Oh, there's a ton of them. I can see them on my camera. I don't know if or on my angle. If you can see some shinies along there. You know, like, so this thing should be like electrician shears should be a like very like a hard steel or like a very sharp steel. These are Gardner Bender, just like these guys. That's the brand that Fleet Farm used to carry back when they were actually useful and you know, like a good company that carried things that I need. Now they don't even carry GRK screws, which you used to be able to buy in bulk by weight there. That was before Home Depot even carried GRK. And I bought these from there. I think these are high carbon steel. They are slightly, this side of it with the notch for wire is serrated. You can see little bumps. Same thing with this guy. The bottom blade is serrated. The top blade is not serrated. The one with all the nicks on it is the not serrated side on this guy. And this guy, I have, like, it's got wear, obviously. but there is no nicks. And I've used this thing. Well, I've had this for not too much shorter than I've had this guy. So, what? 15 years minimum, probably at this point. I'd say 10 years minimum, probably 15 for both of these. But this guy says right on it, and I know a lot of people are like, "There's no way that they're actually using a hardened steel blade for this." You know, like Harbor Freight wouldn't spend that kind of money. Well, guys, it's the Harbor Freight, unlike this, which Harbor Freight seems to either make in its own factory or be, like contracting out like their variant, or like I said, that there are other brands besides Snap-on that make these, so maybe they're contracting one of those brands. But often, like, for them to make their version of the Talon Grip and stuff, they make that in their own factories or factories they closely partner with. So they're actually like designing that and having their factories making it. That is not what is happening with this DOYLE electrician shears. Just like the Knipex. Knipex, they make their own pliers, and apparently knives are done themselves as well, a city over. But they don't make these. This is one of, I believe their, though very good, their automatic strippers are also made by another company for Knipex. That's not because they make pliers, but you know, they make a lot of electrician stuff, so they contract out. And some of those designs, I believe, are even exclusive to them. It's just that they don't make that product, so they're going to find somebody who can make the product, you know, because they don't make that style or the type of product, sort of thing. In this case, whoever the OEM is, it looks like that Harbor Freight was able to go to them and get a DOYLE, which I believe is a much lower brand than, you know, your Icon, and get a very premium electrician shears. So that can get around quite a bit of wire to strip off the outer casing. We've got no... Oh, no, we do. We have serrations on the bottom, just like on all of these other ones. And then a smooth top. And we've got Inox HRC 56. The Knipex says the exact same thing on it. I actually would argue that the DOYLE has a better color scheme, to be truthful. But this is going to be a serious upgrade for actually using for stripping, and other various, you know, like electrician shears needs just regular, like cutting sheathing, cutting shielding, stripping the outer jacket off. There's all different ways to do that kind of stuff, and the electrician shears, being that it's like a hardened steel, can also cut wires. You can shear. That's also what this is for, is straight up shearing of wire. I threw the packaging out because I had destroyed it. I'm just realizing I never showed you the part number and stuff. Let me get that back. All right. So, electrician shears number 7495, up to 10 AWG copper and aluminum. So only soft wire, no steel, guys. No steel. HRC 56, fine serrations. Yep, on the bottom, non-slip cuts. So yeah, that's why it's on the bottom for all these. Like, that's what's holding the, especially the stranded wire in place. You know, basically the serrations are holding in place while the top one cuts it, shears it. Integrated cable cutter for added functionality, so that's for chunking the whole thing. Is the this one very much, that is one thing I'm gonna have to get used to, is there is a way to hold it, and it is this way. If you grab it the wrong way, your fingies don't go in there and your thumb feels all fucked. Whereas I am used to this guy, which is asymmetrical, or symmetrical, not asymmetrical, and you can just like grab it and stick your fingers in it. And you're like, but you also have this one. Yes, I don't mainly use this guy. Also, it is far more obvious you can tell in hand that this is just a cheaper product. Like I said, the one thing I liked about it is this I keep in my toolbox. You might have seen the original video. That's in my office upstairs. I don't generally have a stripper in there because it's for like computer stuff, or like you get tape measure, electrical tape, various screwdrivers, precision screw bits, like that sort of stuff. I don't have like I don't put this in there. I'll put one of these in there. So having something capable of stripping, even if it might not be the best tool, was super handy. And I didn't have an electrician's shears in there, so this was an interesting option. I will say out of the gate, you can tell just like operating this, it is nowhere near as nice as the DOYLE here, which is so smooth, or the Gardner Bender. That thing's also... What caught my eye actually with this was that beefy screw on this little tiny scissor. Beefy screw. With the little, like, comparatively small torques on it. I often put my finger here or here to guide it. Kind of keeps your fingy out of the way so you don't get it snippied when you're kind of moving it around. So stainless steel blades. So it's some sort of stainless in there, but HRC 56. Like a very high not very high, but higher hardness on a blade would like be like a quality knife. Like here, Maverick. Tactile here. That's a 6364, I believe, on these Magna Cut steel. Like, you know, but still, having the HRC 56 is good. This is also, it says stainless contact protective case. We were doing over how that's kind of shit. 7495 is the number you want. This one doesn't even have the dumb other model that apparently is useless. 50% less cutting force required. Then what? 10 to 22. I really don't know that there's a minimum. They're saying 10 to 22 gauge. It's a Shears. Like, you want to snip 26 gauge with this? I don't see why you can't. Let me know down below. Maybe you guys are like, oh, I know exactly why. But yeah, in hand, it feels really, really nice. As soon as like I said, I heard it was based on the Nipex, I wanted, add it to my list, and I $17 is not that bad. I don't know commercial electric. I can look that up real quick. And the Gardner Bender, if this guy's even still made. This is just like a quality old school electrician shears. It's not as old school as like Klein makes one. There was one company that made like classic forged shears. The same company that made them for Klein made like, and I don't know if they were using them for generic shears, if they were fabric shears or something, but Klein still gets like really classic old school metal forged shears, and the people that make them for Klein are the only ones that like still make them that way in the US. I saw it with like a Kickstarter, because they originally started by having them make theirs, but they didn't have the customizability. They wanted the quality, but not the customizability. So they eventually switched branding. So you should be able to, if you want, like, especially like the skinnier, like not this bit of a chonky handle here, but like where it's just like a metal forged pliers, shears with dipped handles. Klein still to this day has one of those. That's not my preferred. Like, this is about where I'm at with my age of shears that I prefer. This thing was always, just beefy, simple. It's just, think of this as like a stupid sharp. If you look at the thickness of that blade, that is thicker than any scissors you're probably used to seeing. And with that giant big screw there holding it, you're not gonna. This is why you normally don't use scissors to cut like wire is because it'll bend them this way, and or the it'll fold over and it'll allow the wire to go through the blade this way. Like instead of being cut this way, it'll flip and bend the blades, and then it'll go this way, and you'll spread the blades about. That's why that big screw or tight hinge is needed, is to keep it together to shear it. You never have to worry about this. I'll even often use this to cut. I mean, I won't normally do like I did. It was just the closest thing I had to do what we were doing earlier, which was cutting open that super thick plastic. God, the hinge on this thing is butts. But I'll often cut like thicker materials with this as well. Like here, holding it like this is pretty common as well. Like, I don't want to know how I like operate, but sometimes you have to really get in there and you know, it's hard to demonstrate. Like, this is probably the most common way I do it, is like here, or like I showed you, I put my finger here. You can really get in there and just go sneap. Very pointy, very, very sharp. This thing is still in amazing condition after all these years. Like, cause it's just a quality, in my opinion, it was just a quality tool. And I feel like this is gonna do the same. I'm actually going to keep this holder. I'm not gonna use this is goddamn useless. You know, if you can find another way to keep this holder secure. The other thing I can already say I don't like about it is it protrudes. If I were to keep this and actually use it, this part of it here, it hit this part, you can see, two dents. That is from re-sheathing this. If you have this in your hand like this and you go like that, it smacks you real good right there. So if I were to keep this sheath and actually use it, I would take these corners off right there and just whack them flat. Or another way to do it would be good to get some sandpaper, push it flat like this and go like. I think I can even show you with a bit of sandpaper. Here's some 80 grit. Yeah, you just go like this and go until it's flat. That, or take a plastic disc on a Dremel and chop as much of it off as you can, because that is not something, if I use it regularly, I want to experience when putting it away, is holding it and then smack, because there's a decent amount of force required. Here's you can see there's like a bump in there that you have to overcome on both sides. The bump, so you have to overcome that. So there's actually a decent amount of force required to put this back in. And what ends up happening is, because that little bump goes into here just a little bit, but because you're pushing down, your hand is going forward, and it just thwacks you. I can imagine if you're pulling this out all day and putting it in here and having that thing just smack you, you're going to get bruising. They're pretty, I mean, heck, I might, knowing how my hands show shit, you may already be seeing stuff after this period of time. But yeah, so that's something I would do, is chop off, if at all possible. And even like for example, you might not be able to take it off back here because it's got this thicker bit. Look back there, right? So you might only be able to cut it off here, like that. You know, then one way to start it would be, you kind of like, right about there, and you go slice, and you go right about there. You could use a tape measure too, something like that. Cut those wingadingas off. Like I said, in my case, this probably just isn't going to get used. The one, okay, so an advantage of using a thing like this that it snaps into properly is that it's going to keep it closed. What can happen is they can open. So if you don't have something that's holding it tight down here, and tugs on this, it can open that up, and that will do some damage if you just have a canvas bag. Right? As it almost took out my foot. But this clip back here, I read some of the reviews, and I think whoever it is on I forget his name on Last Best Tool, but even he was like faffing with it, and it just doesn't make any fucking sense. Because you put it this way, you have to snap it down, which is fine. You know, like this clip's here, which is fine, until you go to pull it out, and that comes up, and then, oh, look, you just pulled the whole sheath with it. And you're not going to, like, re-put the sheath on you. You want the tool. And, yeah, I might be harping on that too much. But, you know, and like I showed here, where, and you might not even have to take that much off that I did. You really just want this sort of right there. That little bit where it's just striking my... Yeah, it just did it again. Look. Right there. So that one thing that proves, and I wonder if the Nipex is the same. I would have to rewatch his video on that. But that shows somebody didn't actually use this. Because smacking that into your fucking ring finger in between your knuckles every time is going to be annoying as hell. Oh my god, my Google is broken. Oh no, I didn't say do that. I said do this. Yep, they still sell them $18.99 on Amazon for the Gardner Bender. Oh look, they carry Gardner Bender at the Home Depot now too. I bet you they don't carry them at Fleet Farm anymore. Oh my god. Like, okay, if I search once on Google at the moment, I can't research. Yeah, they have barely any Gardner Bender stuff on Fleet Farm anymore. That's so funny. Here, I can grab you guys. So here's my issue with my search though. If I go up here and I add a G and I press enter, you see how it doesn't actually do it? I have to research via Firefox. And the other thing that happens is I get white mode the second time I search. This is something that's been going on with them. Okay, so here is, let's do a Klein Electrician scissors. There we go. So right there are the ones that I'm talking about being very classic. Right there. If we go back to over here, though, there you go. ES360, $18.99. That's right in line with the ones that we just bought at Harbor Freight for like $17 something. Stainless steel, hollow ground, micro serration, left hand, right hand users. I mean, great purchase, great purchase, great. Like they're nice. I'm gonna let you. I got rid of that almost immediately. Because what ends up happening with this guy, with this little sheath they give you, with how big the screws are, that I was like, hey, that's like a thing I liked about it, right? That is sewn flat, right? It's not shaped. So the screws just hit the lip every time, and it will not go in properly. So that just got hucked. And I just keep it in the pouch of one of the things in my bag. And it's been fine. But if it does open up, it will poke a hole in there. You'll have to patch it or something. But yeah, if this is an option, I would probably tell you though, unless you prefer this older classic design, grab these ones from Harbor Freight, because there is the Knipex. There's the Knipex, and there's the DOYLEs. And there you go. You got your Inox HRC 56. Inox HRC 56. That is the same product. And these are definitely a bit more advanced. So let me know, for those of you guys that do this professionally, if you're watching, you know, do you prefer the older school style? Are you like the Klein guy? Are you, you know, more of this, like I said, the classic? I generally do like, still think Gardner Bender makes a quality product. You know, back when they were at Fleet, I had no problem. Like, Fleet always carried a good brand of tool that were quality. They might not be as cheap. Like, back, you know, 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't have really counted on going to Harbor Freight. Like, it'd be buy once, break, like, and you'd assume on the first time you're using it, you're gonna break it, basically. Yeah, these guys have you know, held up very well. Like, there's a little bit of nicking there on like the outer edge here, but they've done well for me. My recommendation though is with these for $18.99. I don't know if those are still US made or not. Material and care, stainless steel style, features and specs. Here, trending 100K orders past 3 months. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're a decent product. The fact that my Google search is broken in Firefox is quite annoying. I have no idea what any of this shit is doing. A lot of their stuff is made in the USA, so I'm not gonna say it's made in the USA. I don't know for sure. And made in Taiwan is currently where they're currently made. Okay, so Taiwanese. I don't know if they were when I bought these or not. There is no made in anything anywhere on them. But like I said, I'm sure I've seen a very similar, if not the same design from other brands. Then we have this commercial electric. I think that is a Walmart. Like, Walmart's been getting better at or is it a Harbor Freight? Work Pro apparently has a. Maybe these don't exist anymore. Commercial electric, Electrician Shears, stainless steel datacom strip. So maybe it's a Harbor, or maybe it's a Home Depot. This is like a very much more classic style. I don't know if I would like vibe with that from them. I'd probably go the route of, yeah, this looks like a Harbor or a Home Depot brand. Here, I remember seeing those green tie wraps like that. Their screwdrivers are pretty shit in my opinion. You know, but it is looking like, oh, I got Wiha Electricians. Those that looks weird though, because normally you don't do. Here, they're doing a 3-finger plus a pinky. That means your pointy finger would go in here, 1, 2, 3, and then pinky there, rather than normally you would put the pointy like on the outside. You know, you guys do you. That thing looks mad. But I did see here there's a Work Pro. See, they want $20 for those from Work Pro. And Work Pro is a half decent brand. So if you want one with like a stripper built in, maybe check that out. Knipex used to have like an older design too. It looked like that. So they've from my understanding, they've since switched to the one I just showed you. This is definitely a different model. possibly an older one. Look, I can't go back either to the... Something is up with Google lately. I don't know if it's because of, like, uBlock isn't happy with it, but it always loses my preferences, and now it won't, like, once you search, you got to start a whole new tab to search again. Like, something is funky as there. Funky as. Yeah, these are not great, but I picked them up because they had the stripper. They're good enough. I mean, you saw it cut into that super thick plastic, and I know it's not metal, but like I've used them for that sort of stuff. For the soft touch rubber, this green that you're seeing there is getting a bit gooey. I don't know if you see it, like it looks dry. Well, when that starts looking dry like that, it starts getting a bit gooey. So, you know, it's grippy, that's for sure, but like, oh yeah, by the way, so that other company wanted 3 fingers and then a pinky, so you'd hold it like this. Unless they change where the thumb is and put it back further, your wrist is just that. Nope. You want this. It changes the pivot point if you look where your thumb is in relation to your fingers. Yeah, so whatever brand had that, I'm gonna give them a big nope. This DOYLE, I once again grabbed it backwards. So I need to like put I'm gonna write on here like wrong side. If I see that, then I know I have to flip it over. It's so comfy when you do grab it right. I love that they know that if you're really doing something, like when I was opening that package and you need some force, you're gonna chomp down with the palm of your hand like this. And they've widened it up so it actually doesn't dig in. Because they know you're going to do that. They got this little support for your finger being in angles. It is a righty or a lefty. You know, it's either way. Only improvement I'd say is they could have put, you know, they got the rubber here. They got the rubber here, right? They could have put the rubber. I don't know how easy, if that would have been too small of a spot for that. Because what this is it's like second pass. They do the hard plastic first, and then they inject the soft plastic over top. You know, and if you see it wraps around here, right, and it wraps around there. I don't know, like they couldn't have just put it here, but they might have had to wrap it around there. It would have been nice to see though, you know, because you're gripping right there. But otherwise, this thing feels amazing. I'm trying to think if I've got some wire I can snip. You know what I should be snipping up? That fake display port cable. That's what I should be cutting. Alright, so I found this. Both of those were in our to recycle thing. Because this is a phone line. Never gonna plug that in. And this is a coax, and it's not a shielded coax with the molded connectors, or the crimped connectors. It's this cheap chintzy shit. Came with a UPS. They still ship it with this garbage because it does seem UPS technology is finally changing, but for the most part, it hasn't changed in forever. Here's a tie wrap, metal tie wrap, no problem, or twist tie, I should say. Here we'll do that, chunked that, no problem. This is Cat 4, right? Because it's got, oh, it's not even that. If you look, it's only 2 wires, not even the 4 wires. Womp womp. But yeah, there's 0. That is like butter. Even on the tip, it'll do it. Can we do it? You know, like, just do it partial, like cut into it. Sure can. I mean, this is nothing for this thing. Then we got this guy. Let's chonk that off. That went straight through the outer shielding and the inner coax cable. Like, for example, this is a Shears from Klein, like a dedicated one. If you can see, this thing's seen quite a bit of wear over the years, but you know, if you look at that, like, it's got the weird angle on it. I did go a little bit slower. Let's try again. And you gotta remember, this one's pretty worn. I mean, this guy here and this guy are always at my where I built keyboards for straight for like 4+ years as my income. And you know, this is the one I'd use to shear off any wires. But realistically, if you want to see on this, you're like, why this one? Well, it goes, remember I was complaining that this was too small? Like we went to 14 to 24. Well, this one is specifically for small electronics wiring work because it goes 22 to 32. Like that hole is 32 is tiny. This did not give us a very straight cut. I think I showed you that on the other end that came off. This electrician shears, butter, comparatively. I wonder if we can, yep, easily strip that off by using this circular cutout. So, and yes, I know it's supposed to be able to do much thicker, and I'm using cheap chintzy stuff, but that is what I happen to have here, you know, because that is something you would do, and maybe also cut off the shielding. Oh, I love getting wires stuck into my, there you go, metal wire sliver. Isn't that great? You'll love that, right? I felt great in my finger. Actually, it didn't hurt at all. It just felt like I was moving something around in my finger. So this has just got a cheap, like a really cheesy plastic core on it. Here. It's just like a clear plastic core. Let's chop that off. Can we do it at the front? Oh, we can't. Yeah. On thicker cables like this, which is a mix of plastic and the actual wire in there, you'll definitely want to use the chunkier cutout towards the middle. Can we maybe snip this way? Yeah, there you go. See, we separated the phone wire there with that, no problem. You can pull it back, expose. We got our red and our green, right? And get that guy out of there. Give him a little we'll chop them off, no problem. Like just a little snip. So I really think if you're looking at a new electrician shears, you might want one that's a little bit more up to date versus your old one. If you have more of that Klein style, or if you have like this classic Garner bender. Here, watch, this thing has also like, and it just butter, right? I would say this, it is, here, you can overlay that. It's a bigger shears. right? The DOYLE. Now the ergonomics are actually very similar to like the finger hole size, right? Very similar in like where they're located. That seems to be a like this almost like lines up exactly, except this is just smaller, this dimension. So it seems pretty consistent, like what size people expect out of an electrician shears. So far, I guess this doesn't have a reamer on it, though. Like I said, I don't know how much use that reamer really would have been had I ever used it. This with this double side cutout is much nicer for chopping off bigger stuff like this, because like something like this big, that's, though it's, I mean, it's doable. As you can see, I just shot it across the room. Definitely not compared to no problem, right? So, and you just got so much more width. This is already wider than that commercial electric, you know, for grip, but the DOYLE is, you know, significantly more even than that, which makes it just easier on you to cut, less, you know, like weird places poking you, stuff like that. I need to see where that little cutoff went. Probably all the way down to the floor. Hopefully everything going exactly where I don't want it to lately. Yeah, so had this guy for, like I said, at least 10, probably 15 years. This guy's been less than 5, I want to say. Well, actually, the 5 now was 2020. That's COVID. Bought this before COVID, so 5 years. This is definitely 15. This is probably going 15 or 20. There you go, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like I said, did IT for them as a contractor. So yeah, I think this is a nice improvement. Very sharp blades on there. Some of these that I've seen in the past have had not stainless steel blades, but high carbon steel blades. That is where the stainless steel is kind of important. Yeah, I always use this thing backwards. Just put my finger on that little nut like that. That doesn't feel right on that side. Yeah, those are very sharp, but you do have to worry about you know, either moisture and or working conditions. Whereas being stainless steel, that should be less of a concern, you'd think, right? And you're like, you're talking more about these. Yeah, I didn't realize how nice these were going to be. Case, I'm going to keep smacking myself on that if I don't chop it off. So I will do that and just take that lip and take that lip off. Probably with a Dremel and a grinding disc. You can see where there's like a flat part over here. And I keep, that's the other thing, is this one says DOYLE. I need to be like flip over or something in yellow, because I'm going to try to stick my fingers in it like this and use it. Not that you can't, but that is uncomfortable as, because there's a bulge here for this thumb. Oh, so comfortable that way. I can still do this too with that pivot if you want to get like, you know. So this guy's not going anywhere. He's going to stay at the electronics repair desk with, you know, these more thinner strippers and these shears that are, well, you saw they might be quite worn out. I wonder if it does any better on. Yeah, no, even that, it's cutting horizontally a little bit. Interesting. Let's try the chomper on the front. Oh, geez, that thing's seen. Like I said, those Kleins on that workbench have been quite heavily used. No, not excusing him, but see, I did it again. I need to put flip over or something. We'll figure that out. Also, using them more might just solve that. Next up, we've got the new strippers. So what I think is I mean, apparently the snap-ons have existed for quite some time, and then there's even other brands that either possibly the snap-ons were made on, or like eventually these are very, very greasy. You might be able to see that by the camera. Let's try this cutter here. Yeah, that's serviceable. Like I said, that cutter right there, it looks like they actually beveled it properly, and it did. It cut through that quite easily. Because what can happen is, like on this guy with this stripper, this 32 to 24, like it's just like wedge on wedge, and you get like a weird seam down the middle because it's kind of just like pinching it together and breaking it off, kind of is the best way to describe that. I'd rather have there's a extended micro flush cutter. Just there you go. That's gonna get you a better cut. Here's just the normal micro cutter I use for extended micro cutter that I use for cable management. This would even be better, probably being a little bit thicker, and yeah, it just takes it right off, zero problem. So the wires in here are going to be too fine for this guy to strip, so we're not going to worry about that. But just to talk about it, this one here, for general around the house electricians, around, you know, like just around the house, around the building, is what I'd use. It's kind of like a all-purpose, like I said, garter bender. I don't know, it was a GSP70. Picked this up at Fleet Farm, I don't know, probably 15 years or more ago. Pretty standard. A lot of these are this like stamped metal. The reason why I was looking into this guy is actually getting on an age where these strippers don't always strip. Like you can see on the edges, they're getting a little dull, and I often have to strip it, turn it, and do it again before I can go. Yeah, like, I'm very used to this guy, but it's kind of time to like update, get a new one. Stranded 10 to 22 or 8 to 20. That's a good range in my opinion. You've got I forget what these holes are for off the top of my head. It might be some kind of clip that you put them on and you separate it, or a clip you put them on and you pull it together. But this has screw breakers or screw, I was gonna say screw snappers. Basically, a screw shears. You screw it in to the point that you need, right? And then you do this, and it breaks it off. So often you have longer screws than you need, and you need to make them shorter. And this does anything from 540, 440, 440, 540 to 1024. You know, I probably use that 632 one. You know, and probably the 632, 832 is probably the two most common that I've used it for. I use that all the time. There's like a much more common one that's like black and like bigger. Like it's black like this far down. Those are always super cheesy. Also, like with those, there was somebody online, I think it was actually like one of the knife guys that was testing the shears that come on those, and apparently some of them do say you can use the shears on solid core wire. My recommendation to you guys is never use shears unless stated on the shears. I know they were there, but even this says cut copper only. This has I'm surprised that this has a screw breaker on it. I didn't realize that. But steel wire actually goes down here on here. and it like breaks it off rather than like shearing it proper. Normally, at least when I was taught from like a wee lad, is shears are for stranded wire. Like, you know, in here, if you want to use those, you know, if you're going to use those, use it for stranded wire, not solid core wire. And so I was not at all surprised when I forget who it was. It was Sonny on YouTube made a big deal about it. He's like, all these strippers don't work, you know, like, and he's gonna go. It's because like he wanted to show off that if he rehardened them and rebeveled and resharpened them, they could do it. And then he also showed that Nipex, who was the only one in that entire lineup that had a completely differently designed stripper, because they do, and it actually has much less acute, like more wedge-shaped cutters on it. I would argue much more similar to the cutters that are on this, right? Rather than the cutters that are on this, which are very, because it's a very thin piece of metal, right? And those didn't have that same issue, and they could shear solid core wire fine. I was pretty much always told, like I said, from a young age, like with any of these, where they have these like kind of crappy, where it's thin metal just with like an angle, the same angle the stripper's at. You know, really don't use that on solid core wire. You're just gonna make them useless. And that has stuck with me, you know, and from what I've seen, so I was not surprised when he's testing that and using it on like 12 and maybe even 10 gauge like solid core wire, which is at the big end too of these and all of those that he was testing, and it was taking chunks out of the blade or dulling them instantly. I'm like, yep, that doesn't surprise me at all. For stuff like that, I was told, you know, you either get out, depending if you're doing like housing stuff like a linesman, or you would get out like a proper, you know, like 6, 7, 8, 10 to 10 inch wire cutter, you know, like diagonal cutter, not using the shears on there. So yeah, sadly, I need the bigger version of this to replace this. I was hoping I should have done a little bit more research. But what I do really like about this is on this guy, the stripping is up the tip, right? With a little bit of pliers. Then we have a shears, good place for the shears. Then we have some braking for screws, or screw braking, screw shearing. Then we have crimpers down here. Now, normally you would hold it like this. When you're crimping with this, you basically go all the way out at the ends of the handles and like do that with it. The coax crimp, that's just about useless. That is for this kind that doesn't use the shielded connector that kind of snaps in this way. So on these, under this molded piece at least, there's going to be a coax shape like that under there that's crimped around it. That's like a really old school way of doing that. I actually don't know if that's necessarily good enough anymore, like this type of wire. The other thing that you're supposed to do with these is, if you see that protruding tip there, that's no bueno. I don't have a big enough wire cutter in my hand, but you put there and you cut it off. Basically cut it flush to the spinny guy. But yeah, and then these are crimpers. So you got a, I don't know, that's a 310.311 and a 410.411. I've used that before. I think that's for like that really deep one, might be for those like half moon crimps that go to like those little, the ones you put on like the little ears. I can tell you I have used the wrong crimps to crimp things, because this is the crimper I had and it needed to be crimped. So you jam it in whatever size it can go in and you go smush. You know, maybe that can change. You guys have seen I've unboxed some newer proper crimpers from Knipex. So, but it's kind of, you kind of got to get out of the habit, because, you know, I'm used to using this guy for as long as I have. It's done me well. You know, like I said, though, the strippers are kind of getting worn out, which is why I picked up this guy. And what I like the difference here is you do have the little pliers way at the end. If you notice, these don't touch either. They're not supposed to. A lot of people think because the tires don't touch on like this that they're bad or something, or on the combination pliers. Well, in order to make the cutters touch, you don't have the grippers touch. Otherwise, you're worried that they won't cut, on a combination pliers. The other thing is anything you're going to grab is automatically going to have some thickness. That is why often I will use stuff like the twin grips, or I almost always use that at least one click past where they close all the way, because you're always grabbing something. Like here, this wire has some thickness. You're going to grab it. It doesn't need to be able to close the jaw flush, because you're always going to grab something with... I'm surprised how well the pliers on the front of these actually are. Normally they're pretty shit. Yeah, like comparatively, this one's weak as this Klein one's garbage. Like those teeth barely even tooth. Oh, these are, like I said, those are quite worn. But this thing, I'm still like, those are cut nice and sharp, and they got 4 teeth, 3 to 4 teeth on them, compared to 2 to 3, which are, and those are rounded, and this is looks like 3 or 4 on there, but they're and that could be just be years of use, but this thing grips up real good. What I like though is that the crimper, the part that you need all the force on, isn't in your handle. Think about this. Here's your lever, and your crimper's here. You're losing that much leverage on your crimp. I thought it was really cool that the crimper bit was out on the end, because you're going to get way more oomph on that than you are with something like this, where it's like in the handle. Like you literally have to, normally when I'm stripping, I'm holding it up here like this, and I'm stripping, right? So for the crimping, any of this down here, or even the bolt cutting, you're going all the way at the end here, and you're like going at it. Like I said, I thought these were a little bit bigger having watched the video, but they're pretty tiny. Either way, though, I think it's nicer having the crimper needs a bunch of force. Like that's why people buy dedicated crimpers. Klein makes some, and they're like 10, 12 inches long. And they'll just have like 2 steps. Like they're gonna have like these 2. And they do a real good bang up job. Like I said, the cutter on here actually good compared to a lot of these. Here, let's grab this cutter. It like, here you can see some wire sticking out. Like it cuts it. If you're gonna strip it, it's probably fine. But and this one is at least curved. Like you want that reverse curve on it. You kind of see the more smiley face on the Klein here. Right. If we go to this Klein though, it's just a straight. Like I would avoid using that for cutting if you can. This is my default go-to. I like having the more leverage. But the downside of putting the stripper here, and I think having the stripper in the middle is actually a great idea, because you do not need leverage for stripping. If anything, this is going to give you more control because it's closer to your hand, and you can crimp down and pull, right, to pull it off. Now, the one place that this is going to be a detriment is if say the wires you're stripping are down in, like a piece of electronics or in a dash, and you can't pull it down and out to get this around and in, this stripper is going to be less optimal, because you have to get more of the tool up into the area that you're going, and you're going to have less length on the tool. Like here, for example, I can hold this here. The stripping is 2 inches in and much more pointy here, right? I can stick this in there, grab it, and strip it. Whereas here, it'd probably be easier to get the wire out and strip. It's a different tool for a different situation. If you can get the wire out more open, I think this is going to work better. We'll find out when I use it. And I think the crimper is going to work better as well, because you got more, like here, you're literally on top of it. And you got to right? Hopefully that makes sense. I do want a bigger version of this though. Hopefully Icon makes one. I want like this guy, the 20 to 8 or something like that. This is probably my next most commonly used one. I shouldn't say never. You can see that I've cut stuff on that jaw right there. But this is a 26 to 16. So this is what I had previous to this guy. You can see it's even cheaper. They don't even bother with teeth on the pliers part. They just make two tips bend together, so you get like a little grabber kind of. It's not really a pliers; it's just a little grabber. The cutter on here is just straight up. It is escaping me what these holes are for. But it is just straight up a straight, like it's basically the same angle that they use for the strippers, and they kind of gave you a cutter. It's going to be a pretty shit cutter. It is, you know, you can see this is a nice, like, I forget what they call this handle, but it's like a D shape in there. It's flat steel, but then they put the top wider, and then they double dip it. It's a you know, Klein's well known for this curve handle too. This is their cheaper line. These I've used as much or more than these, I'd say. If I don't need these additional features on here or the additional sizes, this guy's a much more compact little springy guy. You know, I tend to like spring-loaded pliers personally. That's why I've been told I need to check out, what is it? It's like a French brand, where they have like it looks like a fiberglass like loop there or something. So it might start with an F, I'm thinking. Fellow is the name for the screwdrivers used out of Germany though. So I've used this a whole ton. I think this guy's probably more worn out than that one is. I do still keep it around. It is still useful. It's not really on the workbench much though, because we've got this one, and this covers 22 to 32, which is probably closer to what I'm using in the electronics, you know, repair situations. But this has been a good one. It's been, I mean, the handle is decently ergonomic. You know, everything, it says USA made, all their stuff's USA made. It's been fine. The pliers on it sucks. The cutter on it sucks. Both of those are kind of like, if you don't have something better on hand, you can kind of use it, sort of thing. You know, this cutter seems better. The pliers is definitely better. Now we can get to the kind that I hate. Because, like I said, I've used the crap out of these. These are in my toolbox. As this. This is the first one I generally jump to, because I can handle a number of tasks with it. If I'm doing a lot of repetitive work, I'll grab this guy if it's in the range. But this one's also, you can see like wear around all the little strips. Like this one's pretty, I think some of these are actually like wallowed out a little bit too, where especially that 26, maybe a little chunk missing there, where they don't, like they're ovals now, not circles, if that makes sense. What's the new guy? 14 to 24, and this is 16 to 26. So, you know, this guy can kind of replace this one. This I never use. Milwaukee does make an updated one that doesn't use these stupid handles. This is like a molded handle that's like slotted over this like forging here. These are actually known to like break off and like pull off, and there's just like a bare metal stick in there. I hate this style. I thought I would like them. There's a ginormous wire cutter, and there's like a smaller version of the ginormous wire cutter that I love from this era of Milwaukee. But that's just because those wire cutters were like huge and unique, and they're like, oh, you can use them for like pulling nails still, and they're just like these massive beefy wire cutters. I should have grabbed it when I grabbed these, but I really like those. I'm like, I really like those. This is also back when I would say Milwaukee is trying to do, geez, I'm getting a little dizzy. More than a little dizzy. Shit. This is back when Milwaukee was, I think they're trying to do too much with their tools. Like all their tools, they want to be like 6-in-1, 8-in-1, 14-in-1, yada, 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 yada. This thing is super heavy, unwieldy. I mean, I do like the action. I'll admit that. And I liked these handles. What I don't like about them is they if you actually use this on a day-to-day, it's been shown all of them will eventually break. I've had no issue with my big wire cutters, and to be truthful, what happened to my big wire cutters, I'm trying to find the smaller version of them, but like these have been no longer made for like 10 years now, I feel. I would just glue them right back on because I love that big wire cutter for specific purposes. I want to say Funk FPV showed off like a newer version of this with like an updated handle closer to like this Klein or something, that he said, oh, these are like the ones I found to like be fine for what I use. I would personally get the Nipex. The only reason why I don't have them is they have not updated them with the Nip Extend grip. They have shown them with their combination stripper. They have shown them with the Nip Extend grip in some Instagram reels, I think. Like I have that saved. So they're coming, and they look really, really nice. Looks way more competent than literally anything anybody else has out there. But I do not like this style. Some people apparently do. There are other brands that have a very similar, like I don't think this is unique to Milwaukee. These are not made in the US. This is before they made that whole run to get everything made in the US. Because they're also out of Wisconsin, just like Snap-on and Gardner Bender, a bunch of tool companies. But these suck. I also don't like, even if you change the handles off this, I do not like this design. It's very heavy. And you'd be like, oh, that means it's more durable. No, it's like actually like cheaper because they like, I don't know if they pour it and mill it out or what. But it's like beefy. It also does less things. Like, okay, this is just like a stripper with like a nipper and a cutter. But it does less things than this does. Only just 2 screws. It doesn't have any crimps. It is a needle nose though, so you got way more needle nose. But despite the pliers being here and up, the plier isn't even here and up. For those wondering, the grips are only like 2/3, maybe a half of the actual tip, and they're not very grippy. Like it's a shit pliers. You can see I've like worn some of them off already, and I have not used this because I don't enjoy using this. Sometimes I'll grab it thinking like, yeah, you know, it'll be quicker to use this because I got like a needle nose. I can do like manipulate the wire with it and not have to grab an actual needle nose, and I can like cut with this. However, you can see like there's like, I've cut nothing this shouldn't have cut, and it's like taking chunks out of the teeth already. Like, horrible tool. You're like, why do you have it? Well, it's not broken yet. And it is from the same era that my big wire cutter is. I thought this was going to be up to that same quality. The funny thing is this, they effectively make the front end of this still to this day. And like I said, Funk said it was his like go-to. Like, he hasn't found any of the strippers to be amazing, but you know, but he did say that too. Like every now and then he just has to replace them, which, not that like, I've been over how I wear through, like screwdrivers are a thing that I just wear through. And that's why you get ones with lifetime warranty, because you just get them replaced. Or if it's something that happens enough, you buy 2 and you just swap, and then while the one's getting replaced, you use your other one. But I feel like I said, I've used these for 15 years probably. These for nearly as long. I've used these Shears for that long. Now I don't do this shit. It's not my day job, you know. So that's another thing. I'm probably using now these, back when I was building keyboards, I would say I was probably using daily. That's why they're, you know, they're decently well used. And this guy apparently cuts like shit now. I would probably not replace it though, and just use, because I have those nice new Knipex shears. This kind of like chunks it off at an angle, which is weird. I don't know that I've ever experienced that before with it. And if you're running Y shears, like Y shears on stranded cable, because what you're trying to do is slice very cleanly instead of like tunk it off.